Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Housing Committee public hearing. The purpose of this hearing is to review the petition to expand the Jeffrey Place New Community Authority, a new community authority formed pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 349, to support the redevelopment of the former Columbus Coated Fabric site and surrounding property. And with us this afternoon, we have speakers Eric Wagenbrenner, the Executive Director of Jeffrey New Day LLC, and Mark Lundeen, Economic Development Administrator. And now I will hand this over to Mr. Wagenbrenner to talk a little bit more about Jeffrey New Day and the new community authority.
Hi, as Council Member Page mentioned, I'm Eric Wagenbrenner with Wagenbrenner Development. Want to talk a little bit about the Jeffrey Park New Community Authority. It was initially established years ago as part of the Jeffrey Park development at the southeast corner of 1st and 4th, which is a mixed-use development, primarily of residential. We do have a little bit of commercial, a large community center. As it relates, we have since developed the Columbus Coated Fabrics property, which is now Grant Park, now Grant Park, and we've developed several homes there. And working with the city early on when it was the Columbus Coated Fabrics property, we worked closely with the Economic Development Department and put together a economic development agreement which spelled out certain things in the agreement, including forming a new community authority in the future. After talking with Mr. Lundeen and others at the Economic Development Department, as part of having a new community authority, you do have a board, and that board's made up of multiple people. I think there's 7 members, correct? 4 from the city and 3 from the developer. And to create another community authority would have been a lot more work. So it's close by, it's just down the street. So we decided to merge the two together and then made the Jeffrey Park New Community Authority part of the Grant Park development. So that's what we're here today, is kind of adding that development, Grant Park Department, to the Jeffrey Park New Community Authority. As far as any of the funds that are coming from each development, they'll be held separately in separate accounts, so there will be no commingling of funds. We'll make sure we'll keep that complete and separate. I think some background on the community authorities. When we have large sites like this, whether it be Jeffrey or Columbus Coated Fabrics, they are former brownfield projects. You've got large tracts of property that had a lot of demolition, a lot of environmental remediation, a lot of new infrastructure, a lot of new roads that need to be built. So one of the tools that are used is a new community authority, where you can kind of provide bonding or other sources of funding to help pay for that cost, whether it's reimbursement or future costs associated with the development. In the particular case of Grant Park, we have developed 41 single-family homes on the west side of Grant Avenue. We're now moving forward on the next phase of development, which is on the east side of Grant, which includes 246 apartments. We're going to have some for-sale townhomes, as well as possibly some condos for sale, along with a 1 to 2 acre park. So the idea here is to use the new community authority to kind of help with those costs associated with the park and some of the public roads and infrastructure that will be involved in that next phase of development. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Lundeen if he has some other things to add.
Mark Lundeen, Economic Development Administrator, and we're the Office that administers community authorities for the city. Just a quick background, we have I believe 8 community authorities now in the city, and the joining of these two, again, is a logistical and administrative decision that's going to simplify the use of the funds to enable more of the funds to be directed at the park and roadways for the community. It's a choice that residents make to assess themselves additional taxes that, again, will directly benefit those residents, and they can range in their uses. but in this case, the park and public roadways will receive these dollars used, and the park is planned to be public, again, not restricted solely to the residents of the community, but certainly the people who live in proximity to it will greatly benefit from its availability. And again, Wagenbrenner has been a great partner in development and really took this project on at the request of former Mayor Coleman, and it's turned it into significant momentum for Wyland Park. And I think you can't undersell the importance of continuing that momentum and moving on to the next phase of development and really building out a complete neighborhood that has housing options for all levels of income and all residents that want to live here. So I think this is just the next piece of that. It is a 15-year charge for the community authority, and the board is appointed. 4 of them are appointed by city council and the mayor. So again, the city appointees really are the majority of the board and will decide on any investments beyond the commitment to the park and the roadways.
Thank you both. I do have a few questions. At the time that the new community authority is formed or amended, the developer has either owns or has control of the property.
Correct.
So once the property is sold, like the single family homes or for your for sale townhomes, how does that affect the authority?
So how it works is, and this has all been disclosed when we initially work with any buyers of property, in this case the homes, we have a disclosure statement that basically spells out how the community development charge will work through the community authority. So in this particular case, as Mark mentioned, we do have this is in a CRA, so we're going to have 100% tax abatement on any improved values. So in the case of the homes, we basically charge back 50% of that, or the community authority charges back 50% of what would be abated back to the homeowner. That would come as a charge. So effectively, the homeowner gets a 50% tax abatement for 15 years, and we would charge back 50% through a new community development charge. So, and those dollars again will be used for the park and the public roadways and public infrastructure related to that.
And Mark, could you speak briefly to maybe some of the differences between a new community authority and a special improvement district?
Yeah, sure. Community authority is really largely directed at residential properties. Special improvement district is largely directed at commercial. They're both the same in the sense that residents are choosing to assess themselves and provide some extra public amenity that the city would not normally provide. So they have similarity in that. The community authority also is you need to have 100% participation in order to put it in place on properties, versus a special improvement district that's really 70% of the linear square footage of the properties that make up the special improvement district. And again, I think it's the uses of money that also are different in a special improvement district. By and large, it's small businesses, and so they're looking at cleanliness, safety, potentially additional patrols of whether it's off-duty officers or other kinds of safety services for the district, whereas these charges in the community authority are more put towards what I would call permanent stuff: roads, parks, community facilities, those types of more permanent activities.
Mr. Wagenberg, if I can ask you one more question.
Sure.
Can you just talk briefly, and you talked about it a little bit during your testimony, just how the community authority really just helps with the project and how it has benefited the Wineland Park community as a whole? Yeah,
and as I mentioned before, as it relates to the specific development, it was a brownfield. It was obviously a closed factory. So, without these types of tools, for instance, New Community Authority have the ability to charge back something to the homeowners, again, which is completely disclosed to them up front. We couldn't pull off these projects. I mean, they are a significant investment. There's a lot of costs with, related to demolition and remediation and the infrastructure. So all these tools help. And as a whole, I mean, as was it done for the whole community as a generally is that, without controlling this piece or redeveloping it, I think it would have been a stigmatism on the rest of the neighborhood without developing this property. So, we're happy with what's occurred there, and we're looking forward to the next phases. As Mark mentioned, we've been involved, well before we even got to this point of building the 41 homes. We were involved several years before that with the Wyland Park Civic Association and the collaborative on a comprehensive plan for the neighborhood, and work closely with the Columbus Foundation and campus partners and others to really look at a comprehensive approach to the neighborhood, to make it really a true mixed-use neighborhood, various incomes, while at the same time making sure that we have a diverse range of housing for lower income, middle income, and all the different classes. And there's still some work to do, and there's always we're constantly looking at the whole neighborhood as a whole, and I say we, the Wyland Park Collaborative, but I think for most people, I think that it's been a success so far. So, and again, still ways to go, but it's getting better and better.
Yes.
So.
Well, thank you. And
One other
yes.
point for another commission that you may care about. Parks like this are really difficult for our Recreation and Parks Department to manage. And the Community Authority in this case can not only provide that green space and help construct it, but will be responsible for maintaining it. And that's so important for not only these residents, but residents of this small neighborhood. So this is really taking a burden off of our Recreation and Parks Department as well.
Yep. And then I'll add one other thing because it brought up a good point. Another benefit of the New Community Authority, since it is a public group made of board members, one of the responsibilities, there's always some legacy related to the environmental cleanup, and there's a reporting period that's required with the Ohio EPA. So, as homeowners come in and there's that protection where some of that responsibility as far as doing the annual reports, that's something we can turn over to the New Community Authority, which it makes the EPA happy that they know long-term there'll be someone there to make sure that the reporting is done properly. We're responsible for it, but we'll make sure that the New Community Authority will also look at doing that as well.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Well, again, do either of you have any closing remarks?
No, I think so.
Well, I'd like to thank you both for attending and for your testimony. I look forward to bringing this legislation to the full body of council and to explain to them the benefits of the New Community Authority and expanding it so that you can complete the work that you're doing in Wyland Park. And thank you so much. And again, I would like to thank my team for helping put this hearing together, Rolanda Hampton and Sherry Martin, as well as CTV for being here and putting this all together. So everyone have a good evening and see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.